Hello and welcome to Maya 2011. Welcome to Maya. Today I'm going to be introducing you to the version 2011 and let's start. Okay, so first of all, what we have here is called your workspace or or it's called the world. Okay, and this point right here is called the um, what is it? Well, it's called the point of origin. So okay, it's called the point of origin, and it's the world space of this is called 000. And I'll tell you why that is important. Is because okay. Anyway, and this is your grid. I'm gonna start introducing you to elements. Right now, you'd see that there's nothing in your interface right now, and the reason for that is I've turned off everything just to showcase, just to turn them back on, and so you get acquainted with what is what. All right, this is your menu set. Now, until here, from file all the way into window is the menu that is going to remain constant based is going to remain constant regardless of what mode you're on, of what mode you're in. Okay, and I'll tell you why, what is the meaning of that in just a second. I'm going to introduce you to the UI elements. You can tear things off right now. You can just get on here and tear off any menu set. Okay, no problem. Now, this is your there's something called a status line, which is this menu right here, and you have like graphical representations of various icons like new, open, save, and here you have based on like selections. These are selection menus. All the way into here is selection menu set. These, as you can see, these buttons right here are to open and close menus, hide them. Okay, look at that. That's a pop-up that tells you that those are tooltips. Okay, now I know that most of you might know it, but I was just giving you the complete basic rundown. Um, anyway, this right here is the status line, details of which we'll get into right now. And remember, I told you about the menu set. Right now we're in the rendering menu set. If we go to animation, you'd see that things right after. Okay, it's assets. Right after assets, it changes. Okay, polygons. That is for modeling. This is for animation. It's an animation menu set. Dynamics, surfaces, again modeling, a different kind of modeling called NURBS modeling. Dynamics, where you do your particles and visual effects and various other simulation. Rendering, which is another menu set which will help you do light, texture, and finally render based on your settings. Um, and dynamics, which is another it's just like the dynamics button, but it uses another solver method to do that. Okay, it customizes where you can create your own menu set. I won't get into that right now, but anyway, this right here was the status line. Then comes your shelf, and over here you'd see these are your shelves basically, which holds a lot of your frequently used options, and these are organized into different categories like general, practically the most general functions here. Curve, these help you to create NURBS curves and various other tools related to curves. Surfaces, for NURBS surfaces. Polygons, okay, where you can create different polygons and a couple of modeling tools along the way. You'd see that also has, these are also some tools related to texturing, okay, planar mapping and cylindrical mapping and things like that. We'll get into that later. Subdivisions, that's another kind of modeling, subdivision modeling. Deformation is another menu. So anyway, you can just you get the idea. These are some things that I have created based on what I need for a particular task. Um, and these are the shelves that I created, customized. You can create customized shelves by getting into here, shelf editor, and create a new shelf. You can delete the shelf that you're on and load shelf if you have it saved. Okay, and then save all shelves. Basically, when you create a new one, you just click on save all shelves to save your uh, to save the shelves you have. Shelf editor. Well, I don't know if I should get into that right now, but anyway, you can, if you play around with it, you know what? I'm gonna save it for later. We're gonna come back to that. Okay, so this is a custom shelf that I have for polygon modeling. Okay, the reason being I did not need something as much of this. I was not using all of it, so I just made my own. Time slider. This is when you animate, it shows you where in the timeline you are. And right now, this is where in the frame you are. So everybody, I'm assuming you know that animation occurs at 24 frames per second for film and 30 frames per second for NTSC and North American standards. But anyway, this shows your timeline is going to be adjusted according to that. This is your timeline that says which frame you're on, and these are tools to play the timeline back and forth. Play it right now. Just there's nothing in the scene, so it just plays it real quick. Go back to the top. Then comes the range slider. Now in the range slider, you basically ascertain like how much of the how many how much of your timeline do you actually want to see. So you have a full range of 48 frames right now, which is what you have said here. You can go up to any arbitrary number that you want based on your scene count, the length of your scene. So that would be, let's say, assuming your scene is 10 seconds long and we're having this animation at 30 frames per second, so that is 300. You set it up to there, and you're seeing only 1 to 24 frames of the first of 300 of 300 frames that we have. Now you can drag this all the way to here, okay? Or say if it's somewhere you just be like, oh, I want to get to frame 1 again. You drag it all the way back. So this one is your starting point, which can again go in any negative number as well, negative 200. Okay, but I like to keep it at 0 to keep my screen. Or we have the starting of your frame range, which is at frame 1, okay, which is right here. If I change that to 10, oh, it goes up to frame 10, and if I want that to 50, so I'm just seeing 40 frames right now. Okay, command line. This is where you can input mel commands. Mel being the language for Maya encrypted language. Lets you just do anything and everything that you want Maya to do, uh, and that is where the power of Maya lies. Um, and this is your helpline, which basically tells you what is what when you take your tools to it. Oh, look at that! It just gives you a basic description of everything you've set up a particular tool. You need something, you know, it tells you what is what. It gives you a little bit of it's the tooltips take it to the next step, you know, or practically the same thing as the tooltips right here. Oh, alrighty, so that's your helpline right there, and now your toolbox. Your toolbox is this right here, which has a collection of small little tools. This is your select. This is your marquee select. This is your paint selection tool. I'll tell you about that. Move, rotate, and scale. And this is your universal manipulator. I have to figure out what that is. And this is your show manipulator tool. I'll tell you what that is in just a second here. Okay, and then we will want to get your channel box and layer editor. Okay, channel box and layer editor, and this is where you'd see the values of objects that you create in the scene. Okay, I'm going to create an object here. Just, and I like to create something like a polygon. I could actually go into my shelf right here, say polygon, create a cube, and there we go. There's a cube. See, I can go back and forth, change my viewport to look at this object a little effectively. Okay, and the cube, the object is always created at the origin. So you'd see that all these values are clean. They say it's clean because it's created at the origin and there are no other garbage values over here. So it's 0, 0, 0. Okay, if I put this to 1, you see it moves 1 unit in x-axis. Okay, if I put this in 5, it goes 5 units in y-axis. It goes up. Okay, the way Maya has its layout is x goes in this direction, z in this direction, and y points up. Okay, so y points up. Just imagine this. Imagine the way Maya's grid is laid out is that this is your space. The screen is your actual space, flat on your flat, and this is the 3D depth pointing towards you. Okay, you can select on any of these and select your object. Oh, select your object here, and you see how they point to the camera axis. This basically still stays the same. Okay, so what I did right there was I'll tell you all about the shortcuts. You probably want to make a note of that separately. Um, if you select this and if you select the x-axis and the viewport and move it, it moves only in that axis, nowhere else. Okay, the same way you select that and you can move it only in that axis. So you're moving it arbitrarily. Look at these numbers change. I'm selecting the z-axis, moving it. Look at the numbers change. Okay, so I can collectively just turn that back to 0 and boom. Okay, now where did the cube go? The cube is actually gone to the origin, and I'll show you where it is by moving the viewport like that. That's where it went. It went to the origin. Okay, time for shortcuts now. If I hit F, it frames the object in the scene. Okay, it frames my object. Now, how am I toggling around in the viewport? I press Alt and left mouse button for tumbling. This is called tumble. Okay, if I keep my finger on Alt and press my middle mouse button, this is spanning from left to right, up and down. Okay, Alt again, right mouse button, and I'll be zooming in and up, in and up. See, that's it. I move my mouse up, move my mouse down, and zoom. Same way left and right. The same, and I am tumbling right now. So this is how we do it. Zoom, pan it, place it, or simply hit F. I'm framing the object in the scene. Now, if I have a number of objects here, I created a plane. You don't see it because it's right there. We are in wireframe mode, which is why you didn't see the plane when it was created. Creating another cube, I'm gonna move that there. And see, everywhere I'm moving it, I'm only moving it in designated axes. Tell you in just a second why that is. I'm keeping it clean so that I only want to move it on one axis and not any other axis. And you'd see that oh, one more thing. to get that to get this particular um, tool, I'm right in the center. Okay, this particular tool is always created at the object's pivot, which is usually at its center, which is why the plane has its pivot point right at the center. So does the cube right at the center. Okay, and you'd see that if the plane was set to 0, it shares the same pivot point as that of the cube. Okay, now I'm using this particular tool. It's called the move tool. Okay, if I select this particular box right here, I am going to be moving it along the camera's view. It's moving it along the camera's view. I don't like to use this in a lot of cases, especially if I have to be precise, is because I do not know exactly where it is moving. You might think it's right here. Let's see. You might want to move it back there, but no, it's just gone up, you know. So that's the reason why I kind of sometimes stay away from that, especially if I'm animating, because you could just get a lot of arbitrary values. I mean, you could use it. It's not bad. It's just that doesn't give you that kind of control as you might need in a lot of cases. If I, on the other hand, want to move it only in the Y and the X plane and don't want it to go that side in the Z axis, I would just click Control, keeping my mouse on control, keeping my finger on control. I would left click on that axis, on the Z axis, turning it off. Okay, I'm turning it off right now. So you'd see that, see this little square? It's flat, which shows you the plane that it's going to go on. It's just going to be go on the X and the Y axis. Okay, I can click right over here, nothing, to turn it back on. I do the same thing. Keeping my control button pressed, I left click on the center, and there you go. You see that square is back on. That means that I can move it in any direction right now in my camera axis. But if I move it that way, I just turned off my Y axis right now, and I'm going to move it here. It's not going to go up, but it's going to move in this plane right there, the X and Y plane. You know, that's another way to navigate around the viewport. Makes it a lot convenient and easier and precise. Okay, now see we have so many objects in the scene. If I click on F, it goes there. But if I click on A, it frames all the objects in your scene. All your objects. This, by the way, is your channel box. If I haven't mentioned it clearly before, you can now with this object being selected, the plane, and if I click on translate X and I middle mouse button and drag, you see only the X axis is going to be changing value. That's because middle mouse button and clicking from left to right in the viewport, left to right is precise, is what you should do. You're going to be moving the object front and back in its x-axis the same way in z-axis. That's another way of being again precise. You see what I did there? How the z-axis gets highlighted? And the same with your rotation axis. Your rotation axis is x, y, and z again. Okay, and if I turn on the z-axis, you'd see it being rotated like that. Rotate x and rotate y. If I click on F, I frame it in the center. If I click on A, if I press A, I'm framing all the objects in the scene. Alright, so this was your move tool. If I click on Q or this particular tool right here, select, I'll be selecting an object. I cannot do much with it, so I click on either W See, this is flat again, which means that the y-axis is turned off, and I click right there. Now it's back on. Alright, this is for rotation, E, right here. This is for rotation, E, and this is your scaling, which is R. Okay, the same thing. You scale it in all the axes simultaneously, or just in your y-axis, or your z-axis, or separately your x-axis. The same way you can do it right here. Alright, let's put that back to 1. See what happens when you put it to 0? It goes nowhere because the object practically doesn't exist. You have to put it back to 1 because that is its default unit scale. Now I'm going to click on F, tumbling around in the viewport. Right here, double click it, and you can name it, and you can rename it, and you can change the name of the object. So I want to say this is not a pyramid. I want to say this is a cone, test cone. Now I like to stick with the naming convention, and I suggest you do the same as well. Whenever you create any object in the scene, it's always a good idea to rename it, because that just keeps your scene much more clear and clean. And when you have to go and select a whole bunch of objects through your different UI interfaces, it just makes it a lot more easier to know what is what, and you stay in control of it. Okay, now I'll show you what an outliner is. Now you can access the outliner from here, Windows, Outliner, okay, and this basically is the text version of all the elements in your scene. You can drag the outliner here left and right, changing the length of it, okay, and you can select the different objects from here. I'm going to click on the cube, and I selected the cube. I hit F again to frame it, plane, selected right from here. Now I can also change the name right here by double clicking. Okay, so I'm going to call it just a cube. This is just a plane, and that was, let's just go back and make that a cone. Alright, okay, now you see these objects basically do not have any they look like just graphical representations of what they are supposed to be. They don't look like solid objects. So I hit the number 5, and I turn on what is called shading. This is called shading. Okay, so the previous one, number 4, was wireframe mode, and number 5 is shaded. Okay, I'm gonna scale this object so you can see it better. Look at that. Okay, you see this is called penetration of objects. They just crashing into each other. It doesn't matter, but sometimes when that happens, these just objects, they don't actually like have physical form or anything like that, and it's up to us to actually make the audience feel that there is some physicality to it. Okay, that they do exist. Alright, now this was your move tool. Just remember to keep your fingers on W, E, R, and T. T is your manipulator tool that just turns on your manipulation. If you have like a couple of different, I'll show you that when we get to using it. Okay, so mainly it's W, E, R. Q is for selection. Okay, so before we close this chapter for the day, I'll just also take you through these right here. This basically is your default viewport, which is your perspective viewport. Okay, you can click on that. This is again a different viewport arrangement. This is called a layout. These are called the different kinds of layouts that you have. Alright, this is your top viewport, which is an orthographic camera. The top orthographic camera, the front and the side. So you'd select that and you hit F again. You're seeing this from the top view. Okay, go in this viewport, you're selecting this. Okay, that's the front view. And notice that I just take my mouse to the left, to the side viewport, and I hit F. It basically just activates it. You don't have to click on the viewport to activate this viewport. You just have to take your mouse there. So I select this particular, let's say I select it here, but I want to frame it in this viewport. So I just hit that. I didn't click on the front viewport. Okay, I'm not clicking here. I'm just hitting F, and look what that did. Right? If I want to, if I want to have watch, just look at this viewport a lot more clearly, I just have to hit the space bar, and it blows it up for me. That goes to the regular default layout. This maximizes it. And then I can take a look at it much more clearly. Oh, what's this doing here? And then I go back. Notice what I'm doing? I am Alt and right clicking to go back and forth, zoom out, okay, panning and framing it, okay, and if I do left clicking, I cannot do anything in this viewport. Why? Because this is not a perspective viewport. It's a flat viewport. It's a flat viewport. So remember how I told you that it was like a flat surface facing you? Notice that if I actually select this object, I hit W for the move tool, you will not see the z-axis because it is actually pointing towards you. You only see the y and x-axis because it's a flat canvas. On the other hand, right here, you'd see the z-axis and you wouldn't see the x-axis because now the x-axis is pointing flat toward you and you can move this only in the z-axis. In these orthographic viewports, it doesn't matter if you click on the x-axis or z-axis. You would just, if you move it right here using the center, you'd be only moving it in one axis. Look at that. Oh, right now I turn off the I turn off the y-axis, so that's why it's not moving. So let's click on the center and just move it. Look from the top view how it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, alright. So this was your outliner. This was your channel box. We'll talk to you about this tomorrow. Okay, and in the next session, rather. These were your different layouts. Feel free to play with them. Notice that if I close my viewport, I close my outliner, I click on this, which is the first element, and I hit spacebar, I get my same layout. So by default, we have these two layouts. Okay. Now, if I click on the select this third layout button, which is called the perspective and the outliner, you have your outliner right in your viewport, and you have the perspective viewport right here. Now with that, I can move the outliner further if I need more space in the outliner, or I can shrink it. Okay. Also, if I hit spacebar, I can turn down. I'm just maximizing the perspective viewport. The same thing if I do on this side, I can maximize the outliner. Okay. Now on the other hand, if I in this view, oh, I need to go into the top view, right? If I want to go into the top view, I just hit spacebar. This is called your marquee menu. Okay, and this is the center button. I left click on the center button and you'd see the top, front, side, and perspective. Okay, I wanted to go to the top view, so I just drag over the top view and I leave it. There we go, and we're in the top view now. Maximize. I want to go to the front view. There we go. I'm in the front view right now. Let's go back to the perspective. Let's go back to the side. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna shrink it down a little bit. And okay, so that these are your different kind of viewports. This was your outliner. Okay, the outliner basically lists all your objects in the form of a list in your scene. And if you wanted to go into this viewport, and what is it? This one. That's your hypershade. We will discuss more about that later. This is used when you're texturing. Okay, and let's go back in here, and I'll show you one more thing, which is a graphical representation of what the outliner is, and that is called your hypergraph. Okay, either of these guys, hypergraph. You see, these are the three objects in your scene. The hypergraph lists your objects in a node-based representation. Right now I've selected three objects here, and I can drag and select. Three objects are getting selected right here. And if you see, there we go. These three objects are getting selected. Okay, now I can move around in the hypergraph and view the objects specifically, again by hitting F. Framing. You can use most of the selections, most of the viewport navigation, um, most of the viewport navigation tools in your hypergraph except the tumble. So you can zoom and you can pan, but you cannot tumble, which is your left click button along with Alt. Alt right click for zooming in and out, Alt middle click for panning left and right. Alrighty, that ends our session for today, and let's take it up in the next session when we get back. I hope you enjoyed this class, and feel free to post any of your questions into the comment section, and I will get back to you on that. Have a good day.